Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, before we start, the classic disclaimers. My views are my own, so since the Privacy Maker, now Sky, is not a one legal entity, we don't represent the views. This is, of course, not financial advice, not legal advice, and maybe a little bit of health advice for those that have been in the space for long enough. This is me before doing Web3. I did a bunch of consulting and startups, a lot here in Berlin. So that's why I like this event so much, and how I discovered the space. Yeah, so let's get into governance design for those a little bit less familiar. But in a nutshell, governance design is the process of designing and implementing processes, structures, and systems to basically organize things. So make decisions, allocate resources, super important, and manage conflict. The very basic example I like to give is designing a sandbox and thinking about the trade-offs. So anytime we're thinking about building one of these, it's very much like, should the walls be higher and the sand might not come out, but then it might be either dangerous for the kids or they might not be able to access it. So there's always like optimization frontiers, but there's always trade-offs that we need to think about. And in terms of coordination, this is my favorite slide that I like to show because I feel that it simplifies everything in a very concise way. So this is what we're coordinating. It's the work, which means getting something done as human beings. The workforce is us, or I don't know, soon agents potentially. And the capital doesn't need to be money. It could be anything. Like you could be helping someone because of reputation, or because of your love for them, or because you want something in exchange. So that's a bit how I try to think of these conflicts. So previously on DappCon, I was here a few years ago, and I tried to argue how we should be building DAOs in a similar way on how we build software. The talk is somewhere buried in YouTube if you guys care to go deeper on that. But in today's episode, there have been some things happening, and I would like to talk on how to scale DAOs effectively. And there are three things that we've been focusing on Sky, Privacy Maker. One of them is having this rule book that's very, very explicit, very verbose. The second one is having programmable building blocks, and the third one is having decentralized operations. So before we get into those and why we've been trying those, I think this is the dream for, I don't know, potentially any blockchain or any DAO or project, is to reach the 1 billion users. Of course, make it accessible, transparent, fair, and then you have the self-sovereignty and the composability. So with that in mind, if we take a look at today DAOs, this is a bit what they look like. You have some builders or contributors, and then you have the users on the other side. Sometimes there's a lot of overlap, and you have like different types of involvement or engagement, and people jumping from one to the other. But that's a bit how those look like nowadays. And this is the tech stack for most of them. Which is a Discord server, maybe a forum, snapshot if there's something to vote on, and some multisig to allocate resources. So that's a bit what we're dealing with. In terms of the organization, maybe this is not the best slide, but it will make sense later, I promise. But we do have the protocol and the governance in the center, and then you have like a bunch of people working on different things. Sometimes it's better structured than others, but it's all very centralized. There's usually like a foundation or an association that's in charge of providing some direction, and then there's some community permeability to different degrees of success. So what are the scaling challenges that we have found? Well, first of all, the Dunbar number. I think it's important because the moment you grow, I would say it's above 100 contributors, then people start mistrusting each other. You start to get gossip, politics, and whatnot. Then all those very vibrant forum conversations become just people screaming at each other, a lot of unknown accounts popping up, having a lot of very interesting opinions. So it's clearly not new people, but they're like hiding themselves behind a different personality. Then when you want contributors or anyone to start collaborating, it's not very clear what topic should they tackle. It's not very clear what's the direction. The vision is usually not very well established, and there's a huge lack of strategic direction. Even knowing if you can work on a problem is not particularly easy for your average contributor. Another of the huge challenges that we have found is like the rise of the bureaucrats, which is just a bunch of middle managers that are managing and hiring more people that hire more people, and eventually it gets very tricky to understand where the work is being done and how. All the way to the point, if you exaggerate that situation, the DAO starts being managed by the contributors, not the token holders. So the token holders don't have enough context to actually approve or reject things. Contributors have the opportunity to prioritize pet projects. So if I'm, for example, like a contributor that's crucial for the protocol, then you kind of cannot fire me as a token holder, so I can dedicate most of my time to building the protocol in the way that I want instead of what provides most value. And of course, the bureaucrats want to stay there, so they will defend their position at all costs. Which brings us to the hidden complexity of work. So it's very easy to stall work. Like, we need more time, we're testing things, we need to, I don't know, get another opinion from this. It's very hard to prioritize from the token holder perspective. So yeah, it's like there's still no really good mechanisms for token holders to give some kind of direction. Something extremely important, we've been focusing a few years, I would say now, on how to vote and the wisdom of the crowds, but sometimes we're not considering that we need experts to solve specific problems. So for example, if a pilot of a plane started a poll asking which runway we should land, I would be very, very scared of that flight, right? So I think we have like a similar situation in DAOs where it's like sometimes you need the expert to make the decision, so you need to empower someone to go and build that instead of having everything go through pointless votes. Contributors working on the wrong problems, we've seen this for a while in several DAOs, where they're just working and it's not particularly clear that things are actually evolving. And then you have like the problem of defining projects in a way that they can be actually tackled, evaluated, and whatnot. Of course, voter apathy, this is a favorite. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but it's quite hard for token holders to get all the context, and I do not think that delegation is the solution to this problem. So moving on, scaling through first principles. This is a bit the things that we've been thinking on and keeping in mind in Sky while we were designing these governance tools. The first one we did is decompose the organization. So this is a bit like cheating, right? Because when I mentioned the Dunbar number, what we're doing nowadays with this thing called stars or sub-DAOs is that we're breaking apart the problem. So we're saying, hey, instead of having like one huge organization, now we're going to have multiple very tiny organizations. You can think of the two pizza rule from Amazon, right? Where the team needs to be, and you don't need to enforce it, but ideally a team is small enough that they can build their own project and take it from there. So that's a bit how we solve the organization. Is like we cheated and we made a lot of smaller organizations that they can have their own politics, they can trust each other, and they can make sure that their star or their sub-DAO is actually working forward. All the workforce goes to the edges, and you just have the scopes for these rule books that we're going to be covering later at the center, at the core. Simplify and structure the governance layer. This goes against again with how the core should be working. So we are thinking about having this all the rules written out, and ideally it's in a system that keeps evolving and keeps improving with time. Then empower strategy and contain politics. That's another first principle that we've been thinking on, and it's actually define governance as strategy. So make sure that the strategy is set up in a way that it can be used by contributors to grow the whole ecosystem. Separate politics and agreeing on the strategy. Again, this happens when you start breaking apart the problem. So if person A wants to work on a problem, person B wants to work on another problem, you need to fight on which problem is better to solve. You can hopefully try to build both and then either let the market decide or make sure that that things are working properly. Attracting experts. Again, going back to the pilot analogy, but we do need expertise to solve the hard problems. So how do you make sure that your DAO is accessible enough for anyone to come and join a problem, either as a star or as an advisor? And then, enforcing processes is making sure that when you correct something, you're actually making sure that the process gets better. So all the time you have to have this central rule book that you're making better and better so that the whole DAO becomes better. And last, and I think this is extremely important, is to empower the entrepreneurs and making sure that people want to come build within your DAO, your protocol, your ecosystem. So give them enough autonomy, give them the tools to be innovative and to be able to experiment at the scale that's needed so that the whole thing doesn't implode. So a few concrete examples, and this is what I promised in the beginning, is to show like the governance stack, how we're working on that. Then the building blocks is these things that we're building to attract the talent. And finally, segregate the operations to make sure that things are running smoothly. So starting with the governance stack, I think this is covering the better access, the fair rules, and the self-improving. So we have the thing, we call it the Atlas, but it's basically just a bunch of rules. You can think of it like a bit of a constitution. So there's, I think there's like 300, 400 pages, and it's still growing. So that might be a little bit daunting. The cool thing is that it's written in, I think it's JSON, but it's data interchange format. So basically it's built for computers. It's extremely verbose, meaning that all the little rules, there's examples for things that you can and you cannot do. There's different layers, and then they're specialized by scope. So potentially, if you bring an expert on accessibility or an expert in, I don't know, protocol security, they will be targeting different parts of the Atlas, and they will be working on different problems. So how do we do that? Scopes are a bit like areas where you could work to make sure that that things are running properly. And then everything should be a framework. So when you think of how to solve a problem, it's not solving this current problem right now, but it's trying to build rules that will stay there for very, very long time. And of course, you supercharge it with AI because that's the cool thing to do nowadays, and you get better valuations. But no, jokes aside, you need the AI for better accessibility. So when you visit a new country, you don't read all the laws before visiting, right? You kind of like understand, and you have like, I don't know, science. You have you can copy what people are doing. So this is a bit the same thing. It's like am I allowed to build this? Am I allowed to do this? You should have like a cool, accessible way to making sure that you're respecting the rules and that you're building things that make sense. With that in mind, building blocks. So this focus on enable the builders, simplify the tech, and increase the security. We do have the stars, as I was mentioning. The stars, again, they are like self-contained sub-DAOs that are doing kind of whatever they want within certain rules. So they are dividing the work streams. And again, if you think that someone says we should build a whatever fork, or we should go and buy a bunch of treasury bills, you don't need to fight for that and spend months debating that. You can just create 2 different stars and you say, like, guys, just go for it. And at the same time, that would scale the whole protocol better. So Spark is potentially the most famous one. For those that don't know, it's a fork of Aave. And yeah, I think there are like news coming out this week, but there are more stars coming out very, very soon that we'll be very excited to announce. What are the star powers? And this is the 2 things that we're giving them to attract builders. Basically, you have the accessibility reward and you have the allocation system. The accessibility reward, what gives you, it's they give you a commission on all the USDS that has been coming out of the protocol. So you can think of someone that has a lot of connections, they have absolutely no technical background, and they could create a star saying, like, I'm going to integrate USDS in, I don't know, all the wallets, all the projects in Latin America, and I'm just going to get the accessibility rewards. So for any person holding USDS, you would get these accessibility rewards, and you would do it through the building blocks. That I'll explain later how that works. But basically, a person would say, like, I need A, B, and D, and then they would start earning the rewards after doing the integration. And the other superpower that the stars get are the allocation system, which is these funds to invest on different opportunities, such as the T-bill market or real-world assets or anything, right? Athena, Morpho, like there's a bunch of opportunities out there. So it's like getting yield with this. It's a bit of a line of credit. And again, the building blocks would work for that. So last, it's like, how do you make sure that the whole thing is working? You have the segregated operations to reduce misalignment, to allow focus on the strategy, and to have these economies of scale. So point number 1 is to split the strategy from the operations. So how this works is that the star would say, we want to do this, and then there's an operation team that's a bit more, I want to call it centralized, but it's completely separated, that it's going to be focusing on executing the strategy that the star is setting. So again, someone with absolutely no technical background could say, like, hey, I need you guys to deploy this here, and they would like help you through the whole process, the operation teams. And finally, scale the operations to enable stars. These operation teams is actually deploying the primitives, making sure that the capital is moving around how it's supposed to, and that everything works according to the atlas. And the last point is that there's this insurance, so they would have like a boring token that accrues on value, and if they do not operate properly, then they would get slashed. So endgame in a nutshell, the work would come from the stars. They would be setting the strategy and saying what needs to be done. The workforce is the ecosystem actors, which is like a service provider. So if a star wants to do a new front end, for example, they would hire an ecosystem actor to do that. And finally, on the capital, you have the tokenomics. So any token coming out would benefit the whole ecosystem. In terms of the hierarchy, this is a bit, again, I don't know if this slide is the best, but the atlas would be the rule book that needs to make sense for everyone and to make sure that everyone's doing the whole same thing. Then you have the core executor agent, which is overviewing the operational executor agent. So the operational executor agent, they're executing the strategy of the star. And they have this insurance that I was talking about. Then the core executor agent is overviewing a bunch of operational executor agents. They also have insurance so that they don't, or that they do their job properly. And of course, each star would have like the first loss capital. So if they deploy capital in something that's not working, they would be the first one to lose the capital. So that's why it's important to keep the incentives aligned. So yeah, that's the recap, the 3 things that we're doing all in all to scale this DAO. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, and I can help you with that.
Juan, here we go.
Hey, Juan, thank you. Regarding the whole sub-DAO thing or stars, I have a sense that it just pushes the problem one layer deeper. Mm-hmm. So my question is about what are your guys' processes to create new stars and deprecate failing stars?
Which problem in particular?
Sorry, what?
Which problem do you think that it's being pushed in particular?
Oh, so as you said, like once you reach a Dunbar number, people cannot coordinate, right? And mm-hmm. So Maker's solution is split it up into stars, and they will be able to manage themselves. But the problem is who gets to decide which stars are created and which stars are slashed, mm-hmm. which is still the same problem.
Yeah. So there's right now we have this process where we're making sure that everything works very, very well with a lot of coordinated efforts. But the dream, or what we're trying to achieve in the future, is that if anyone brings in capital and a team, they would be able to get, again, you need this capital for the first loss. So you could think of you saying like, hey, I have this idea, and everyone's like, that's a really bad idea. And it's like, well, here's, I don't know, 3 million. So you would get like this line of credit where you would be able to deploy capital. So the executor agent would be deploying the capital for you, and then if you lose money, you would lose that 3 million that you could get from, I don't know, investors, friends and family, wherever it is. So that's a bit how we're thinking about making like this. You are pushing the problem, but you are saying like, if you believe that you can make money with this opportunity, like then go ahead and do it.
Other questions? I have a question. How about delegation? Can you mentioned briefly that you think that delegation is just not a good solution for governance. Can you speak more on that?
I didn't say exactly that. I'm not against delegates. It's just that it feels that delegates have been undefined by the space for a very, very long time, and people are expecting different things. Everything from setting the strategy to, I don't know, auditors. So a delegate, and when you ask the delegate, it's like, no, we're just voting kind of thing. I think Maker has a huge responsibility for that. When we set this up, I think we were one of the first to start paying delegates. When we set it up, we didn't define it, and we said like, okay, delegates will eventually kind of like, the market will decide and we'll get the best. But what happened is that some delegate started a forum post, and then everyone was like, okay, that's what a delegate does. And now it's like what's happening across the industry just because we didn't define it. And you even have like professional delegation companies that are doing that across different protocols. Again, I don't think that, my point with the delegates is not that they are useless, is that the way they are undefined right now, they're producing very little value for what they do. We do have a few ideas, but nothing too concrete yet to be able to share. Maybe I'll come back next year and talk about that.
I think it's a good topic, yeah. Any other questions for Juan? All right, please give it up for Juan from Sky.
Thank you.